in Dear Piggy's JavaScript course. So in this video, we are going to be working on functions. So yes, another big area to conquer, but this, if you've learned any other languages before, you all know that functions are so important, such great topics to learn about. So let's jump right in. So good news is we only have one slide for this video, so it should be done pretty quick, but let's get started. So I'm going to go over to Replit, this one. Yep, I'm going to create a new REPL. And the first thing that we're going to do is talk about functions. So why are functions so great and what do they do? So functions are so amazing because if you're a lazy person like me, then you know it's really hard work to write so many lines of code, right? So functions can save you time and energy because you create your function once and you can call it as many times as you would like to, and it works every single time. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to create a basic function in JavaScript. Now, if you've done this before in another language, then the reasoning is the same, but the syntax is slightly different. Then we're going to work on passing parameters into our functions as well. So let's come over here. We're going to change up our code a little bit. Remember, if you take a look at the last video about DOM elements, then you know what we're going to do right now is we're going to get rid of this part. We're going to take this script tag, move it out of the body, and put it underneath. So now we know that all of our JavaScript code comes over here. So all JS code written here, and then we can ignore the external sheet, right? Perfect. So now let's get started. A basic function looks like the following, guys. You define the function by saying function, and that's the keyword. You give your function a name, and then you put parentheses. We're not going to quite get into these letters inside yet, but we will in a second. And then we put curly braces. So in our curly braces, we are going to write our code. Now, our function for now is going to be very simple. We are just going to write one line, and we're going to maybe do some mathematical operations in it. However, there's one keyword I want you guys to really look at, return. So return is not a fancy keyword at all. All it means is that you should stop executing the code after the line. So we just want to run this line, and then after that, we're just going to stop. So now let's come back in and let's create our first function. We're going to come into our JavaScript code right now, and we're going to say function. This is saying that we're creating a function. Let's see, function smart calculator, right? We don't want a stupid calculator because then some things could go wrong, right? So we're going to put parentheses over here because that's saying that this is the function name, and then we're going to put curly braces. So please, guys, be careful that you don't put parentheses for all of them because I know lots of people tend to make this mistake, but it actually is going to be curly braces. Curly braces are the ones right above your brackets and next to your P, just in case you were wondering. So we're going to enter, and then we're going to say return. For now, let's just work with a simple function. Return, let's see, 3 times 5. So return 3 times 5, which is 3 times 5 is what, guys? Is 15, right? So this function, no matter how many times we're going to run it, is always going to give us 15. But that's okay, because right now we're just going to work on very simple functions. Now, the next part that we're going to do is we're going to again practice using inner HTML as well as DOM elements. So we're going to print 15 back to the web page by doing the getElementById function here. So let's take a look and practice this again. Right now it's going to look slightly different because this isn't exactly a variable. It isn't something we're going to give it to. We're kind of want to print a function. We're going to call a function. So here's how we're going to do it. Instead of directly running the function, we're going to assign the function value to a variable. Then after that, we're going to print the value of the variable to the web page. So there's two-step process right now. We can say var x is equal to smart calculator. So now we have a variable x, and it's equal to the function smart calculator. And smart calculator in this case is going to return us 15. So x now has a value of 15. Now, how do we print the value of x directly to the web page? We use DOM elements, right? We're going to say document.getElementById, and then we're going to print out x. But wait, there's a catch. In order to get element by ID, in order to use this function, we have to have an HTML tag involved as well, right? So let's go ahead and create our tag. Remember, in our previous video, we learned that a basic tag is the P tag that looks like the following. Again, usually all my videos can stand alone. However, it would be so helpful if you went and took a look at the .getElementById video, because it would help a lot with this one as well. So in this P tag, we're not going to put anything in here. We're just going to give it an ID. And remember, an ID is kind of like a name for the element. So we can give it, let's give it my ID as the name. So we've successfully created an HTML element with the ID called my ID. Now we're set and good to go. We're going to say, go to the entire document, look through your entire document. Whoopsies, look through your entire document. Find the element that has a name called my ID, and for your HTML, I want you to print out x, the value of x. So let's run our code and let's go ahead and see what happens. We run our code and we get 15 on our web page over here. Again, small number, but there's a lot of work and a lot of logic behind it, right? So this means that it has worked successfully. Before we get on to the next section of our functions video, let's go over this one more time to make sure that we completely understand what's going on, right? So we first create our function called Smart Calculator. Now I can say return, whoopsies, return 4 times 6 now. So now Smart Calculator returns 4 times 6, which is what? 24, right? So we have a function that prints out 24. Now in order to actually get it to show up on the web page, we need to do the document.getElementById business. But in order to do that, we need to assign this to a variable first. Otherwise, it's not going to work. Or actually, guys, could we try that? Let's try that. Is equal to Smart Calculator. We can try this. I doubt it'll work, but we can try. So we can run our code and we see that it gets 24. Perfect. So here we've just introduced 2 ways that we can do this. The first way is that we can assign this value, the Smart Calculator value, to a variable called x. So as you can see here, I did var x is equal to Smart Calculator. So x is going to be the value of Smart Calculator, which is 4 times 6, so x is 24. And then you say .innerHTML, print out the value of x, and you run the code and you get 24. Another way that you could do this is to completely ignore this line of code over here and directly run Smart Calculator. Directly run the function on one line by doing this, Smart Calculator. But don't forget your parentheses, guys. Your parentheses are very important as well. So essentially what you're saying now is you're saying for the ID name called my ID, for the HTML, I would like you to print out whatever the value of this calculator, Smart Calculator function is. In my opinion, this is easier and it's all written in one line. However, for those of you who are just starting to learn JavaScript, assigning it to a variable first may be more easier to understand. But it's, again, whatever is the most convenient for you. We run our code and we get 24. So now we understand that. We understand how to make a function and we understand how to print it back out to the web page. If you're slightly confused about this line of code over here, go check out the previous video about getElementById, and it will hopefully clear things up a lot more. Now on to part 2. We have created a function that multiplies or adds or does anything to 2 numbers. But what if, just what if, I don't always want to multiply 3 times 5 or 4 times 6. I would like to choose the numbers that I would like to multiply, right? This is also really important because we don't always want to have one single value for the function, right? Every single time we run the function, hopefully it'll change just a little bit. So let's go ahead and let's do that. How we're going to do this is we're going to pass in parameters. So yes, parameters are going to go in this parentheses over here. Function Smart Calculator. if you would like to add or multiply or divide or subtract or do anything with two values or however many values, you would put them as variables inside of your parentheses. So you can say num1, num2, or you can call it x, y, or you can call it a, b. My point is that these are the variable names that you create, so you can call them whatever you want. Totally up to you as long as you remain consistent. I'm going to call mine x, y, like variables in math. So now we can return x divided by y. So what have I done here? Let's take a look. I created a function and I've taken in two parameters. My parameter is x and my parameter is y. And so I'm saying that instead of having fixed values for x and y, these values can change every single time, right? So I want to take these two values, x and y, it doesn't matter what they are, and I want to divide them. I want to do x divided by y. Now, when I run my function, I do need to do something slightly different as well. If I just, let's go ahead and get rid of this, and we'll stick with setting it to a variable value for now. So let's uncomment this out. Var x is equal to smart calculator. I can't leave this parentheses empty. If I'm running my code and I leave this empty, then my computer is the program is gonna get confused. It's gonna say, well, x and y aren't defined. What do I divide, right? So I need to give two values here. Say I do 4 and 2. So then x would be 4, y would be 2. 4 divided by 2 is 2. So we run our code and we see that it gets 2. So we passed in a parameter successfully. You could also do x, y, z. And you can say x divided by y times z. 4, 2, 9. Now what's going to happen here? X is 4, y is 2, z is 9. 4 divided by 2 is 2 times 9 is 18. Hopefully I did my math right. And yep, we get 18 on the screen here. So that is how we created a function, and we passed in parameters, which are basically our own variables that we can go ahead and define when we run our function here like this, and then we can change the value depending on what numbers we put in those parentheses. Again, you can also comment this code out like this and do it like this. Smart calculator. Now in the parentheses, I still have to give values, right? I have to give an x, a y, and a z. 10, 2, 6. So what would this do? 10 divided by 2 is 5 times 6 is 30. We run our code and we get 30. Perfect. So guys, this was our functions video in JavaScript. I hope it helps. Again, this is very similar no matter what language you learn. Functions are all the same idea, the same parameter passing is basically the same, except the syntax is just a little bit different, right? I hope this video was clear for you guys. If you were a little bit confused about what I was printing to the web page, check out the previous video about .getElementById, and hopefully it'll clear things up. So that's it for this one. I will see you guys next week. Bye, guys.